on the Nashville.gov website. All action items voted on at today's meeting will be reconfirmed at the next in-person meeting of the meeting. Public comments previously submitted will be read by Metro Arts staff member Grace Wright. If the public would like to comment during the meeting, they will be given the opportunity to do so at designated times that will be announced. The number to call is 629-255-1921. That number again is 629-255-1921. Now, I encourage all participants on this call to stay muted and use their raised hand with expression if they would like to speak. If any commissioners are having any technical difficulties with this functions, please let us know before we proceed. Okay.
Just to let you all know, Sherry is attempting to get into the meeting currently. So hopefully she will be here in a second.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do roll call. This is Mary Elena Ramos. I'm present. Commissioner Bonnie Dow.
You're here.
Commissioner Campbell West.
Here.
Commissioner Clay Haynes.
Present.
Okay. Commissioner Jackie Daniel. Okay, I'll come back to Jackie. Commissioner Jim Smith.
Here.
Commissioner Marcus Whitney.
Here.
Commissioner Marianne Bird.
Here.
Commissioner Mattia Powell.
Here.
Commissioner Paula Roberts.
Here.
Commissioner Will Cheek.
Here.
Commissioner Hope Stringer.
Here.
And who am I missing? Am I missing anybody?
Me, Nikki Kaufman.
Where are you, Nikki?
I'm down at the attendees because I have to log in from my browser.
Okay. Well, Nikki is joining us as well. Thank you so much.
This is Jackie. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now, Jackie. Thank you so much.
Sorry, I was having trouble with the mute button.
That's okay. That's okay. Okay, just a quick note, if any of you have to leave the meeting for any reason, please let us know because we need everyone here to make quorum for the grant allocations votes, okay? So now I need to call for a motion that the meeting agenda constitutes essential business of this body and meeting electronically is necessary to protect the health, safety, and welfare of Tennesseans considering the COVID-19 outbreak and is permitted under the governor's executive order number 16.
So moved. This is Will Cheek.
Thank you, Will. We need a second.
I'll second. It's Bonnie.
Okay. Thank you, Bonnie. If anybody has any comments on this motion, please raise your hand and I'll call on you. Okay. We need a vote. All of those in favor?
Aye.
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 Do we have to do this by roll call?
I'm sorry?
Do we have to do this vote? Do we have to do every vote by roll call?
My understanding is that we don't have to. Caroline, I will let you talk about that.
I think we're going to just try to do a voice vote if we can to make it a little bit more expedient. So we're going to try that.
Okay. I vote yes then.
Thank you. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, thank you so much. The commission will not be approving any minutes until our next in-person meeting. I will now pass the meeting over to Emily for some Arts in Action updates.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Go ahead and advance the slide, Grace. Thank you. Okay, I'm sure most of you know our biggest news in the past month was our budget. And I would encourage you all to look at your board brief where I've linked Erica Ciccarone from the scenes open letter to Mayor Cooper, begging him not to cut half of our grants budget. Just a beautiful letter, and just really gets at everything that small-ish budget can do in the community and the huge return on investment. And most of you know, council passed a substitute budget, which restored most, not all, but most of our grant funding, which we'll get to a little later on in the meeting. Next slide, please. More media about our voter sticker contest results. So last time we met, we were in the voting phase. More than 2,300 votes were cast from Davidson County residents, and the winning design came from Milka Nagasi, who is a rising senior at Hume Fogg Academic Magnet High School. This sticker was one of the 8 finalists, and it was the overwhelming favorite of the voters. So the stickers are printed, they're ready for the August and November elections. The early voting for August starts July 17th, and we'll have stickers ready for that. And you can watch the video announcement of the winner and learn more about Milka and the whole process at metroartsnashville.com/vote. Next. Here is a picture of Attilio. He and Leslie have been parceling out those stickers into bundles of 100 for all of the early voting locations and election day polling places. So we'll save some for you all next time we meet in person. And other media that we had was around the announcement of the winning sticker. So the Tennessean and Channel 5 carried that news, and the response from the public has been overwhelmingly positive. So that's great. We have since closed out our Thrive process for the April 2020 Thrive funding that you all allocated at your special April board meeting. All the projects have been closed out. In total, we funded 26 projects. Multiple artists were involved with some of those, so it's many more artists than 26. You can view those projects and experience them on the blog at our website. And we'll be evaluating their effectiveness in this type of sort of emergency funding allocation later. But we had everything from virtual concerts, even virtual reality concerts, to music lessons and art classes, dance classes, even Zoom improv sessions. So I encourage everybody to check those out on the blog on our website. And finally, waiting for this, there we go. Dial Fellowships, our Diversity and Arts Leadership fellows begin on June 1st, and there are 10 total fellows. This is a partnership with the New Jersey State Council on Arts and ACTA. Everybody who's worked with these fellows has just been inspired by them and blown away. We're really excited to continue our work with them over the summer. So Metro Arts is providing practical skill set sessions to prepare these young leaders for careers in the arts. And that's all I have for highlights.
Okay, thank you so much, Emily. I really appreciate it. We will now move on to action, to our first action item, which is restorative arts. For members of the public that would like to call in regarding this agenda item, you may call in right now. That number again is 629-255-1921. Our operators will put you on hold until we can let you into the meeting. And now I will turn it over to Janine.
Hi, everyone. Just want to remind you that at the last meeting, you approved the Summer Restorative Arts Project as well as the FY21 guidelines. And so since then, we've held our review and will now be making recommendations for the FY21 Restorative Arts Awards. So with that, I will now be passing over the presentation to the brilliant and dynamic Restorative Arts Coordinator, Nicole Robinson. So with that, go ahead, Nicole.
Good afternoon. I'm so excited to be with you all. You get to have a little restorative arts overview this past year, so I'm very excited to share that with you. Just a review, the Restorative Arts Program is a collaboration between Metro Arts Commission and the Metro Nashville Davidson County Juvenile Court, and then their contracted provider. And the whole goal of this program is to facilitate meaningful arts experiences with the goal of creating safer communities and providing support and opportunity to those directly impacted by the juvenile justice system. So next slide, please. How do we do this? Well, there is a great model supplied by Catherine Evans and Dorothy Vandering as it applies to education. And there are three facets. It's to create just and equitable learning environments, build and maintain healthy relationships, as well as repair, harm, and transform conflict. And so next slide, please. So these next three facets are illustrated before your very eyes. So the first one being creating just and equitable learning environments. We saw this reported by one of our providers, Intersection. After listening to Lift Every Voice, a participant said, "It makes me feel free in a system trying to destroy me." And so that particular lesson, all of the students had never heard of the song Lift Every Voice, and that particular session was talking about equity in music and how music can catalyst change. And so that's a beautiful example. The next comes from the heart. The assistant director of JDC called Carrie Frazier, a teaching artist, wanting to know if he wanted to talk to a student who just graduated. Carrie was so happy they spoke for a long time, and Carrie gave him, the student, encouraging words. And so this student wanted to talk to his teaching artist. That was who he wanted to call to tell his good news. And so that's a clear example of building and maintaining healthy relationships. And then the last is a wonderful example of repairing harm and transforming conflict using the arts. Southern Word reports 2 teens who used to fight were able to create a song together. Song making became a catalyst for overcoming grievances. And so this is beautiful because these 2 teens were actually separated juvenile detention center. They have pods. There are 4 pods, and they actually were in separate pods because of their beef, is what they call it, or fighting. And through the songwriting experience, they were able to make amends and to own the responsibility, and then to create something really powerful. Next slide, please. So in review, last year we had 554.4 total hours served, 107 participants, 15 teachers, 14 classes offered, 5 programs in the JDC, 2 family and community programs, and then 1 probation program. Next slide, please. Some of you had questions about how we adjusted for COVID-19. So here's how we adjusted. 152.5 hours were served in alternative ways. 4 mobile learning labs were created, interactive, engaging, creative learning labs that could be used if COVID happens again and we're not able to offer virtual programming. These could be used as well as in spring or summer or holiday breaks. There were also 2 training presentations that were created, 2 parent projects that were actually given over to the court, and the referral system actually gave the link to parents, and they were able to engage in classes offered by both of these organizations. And then Juvenile Detention Center, they didn't want to hop into virtual programming. They wanted to pilot it first. So they piloted it with From the Heart. It was successful, which paved the way for now our summer virtual programming. And so one of those, so that was also an adjustment, is that course was offered virtually. Next slide, please. Looking forward. Oh, I'm so excited. Get excited. Looking forward to funding year 21, increased training and support for our teaching artists. This was something that came up over and over again, and we wanted to refresh and renew this program. And so we're offering 10 hours of training prior to this funding year, as well as quarterly support and quarterly training and meetups. And so this increased training and support for teaching artists will include more in-depth teaching about ACEs, adverse childhood experience, trauma-informed care, restorative practices, and best teaching practices. Something that came up a lot is our artists said, oh man, I can do great art, but teaching is also an art. And so we're going to support them in that. The next way, expanding work with probation to include all 4 levels of probation. You're going to see this in the proposed funding for this year. The third, encouraging best practices and mentorship models and restorative practices to be integrated intentionally into programming. A lot of our providers do this organically, but we're going to just infuse these practices even more and make them intentional. Next slide, please. Fourth, fostering a healthy, positive relationship and communication with Juvenile Justice Center and their contractors, as well as community partners and locations. The fifth, instituting more effective evaluation processes and instruments, including specialized data tracking and information gathering. And then lastly, we're going to build a sense of team and respect for all involved. This is really key. Creating this communal identity in restorative practices. And so you all are a part of that. So welcome to the restorative arts team or family. We're going to, at our training, we're going to come up with a word that is going to symbolize our little community working together. And so welcome, you are a part of that. So let's go ahead and advance to the next slide. So here's where we get to funding year 21 funding. We are going to be serving in 3 areas, in the juvenile detention itself with instruction and mentorship, on the probation side with instruction and mentorship, and then this family and community support piece. And so the first proposed program, next slide, please. Here were our panelists. Sorry. So just briefly, Yolanda Hockett, she's the Assistant Program Director in the JDC. You'll hear me say JDC, that's Juvenile Detention Center. Natalie Alfaro Frazier, she was a former Restorative Justice in the Schools Program Coordinator in California, recently relocated here. We're so happy to have her. Cortelius Holmes, who's the high school principal in JDC. And then we have Latana, next slide. Latana Williams, who's the contract manager for the juvenile court, and then Kelly Gray, who was recently promoted to the director of probation with the juvenile court. Next slide. All right, so you will have a detailed summary on your page, but for the sake of brevity, I'm going to go ahead and give you a short introduction and take questions at the end if you have any of each of the selected organizations that our panelists selected and that our committee approved. So first up is Southern Word. This is a writing-focused workshop that integrates audio production, DJing, and theater to build communication, process challenges, and develop positive identity. They will also launch a mentorship program that will feature one-on-one mentorship with 10 youth in the spring. The award amount is recommended at $24,375. The next organization is Global Education Center. They'll offer a diverse class schedule to include dance and painting, crafting, theater, and music. And they will also offer, this is something new this year, quarterly performances such as flamenco in the Juvenile Detention Center, as well as one community event for our families. They will also, as part of their community piece, 9 free 12-session classes for families that are directly referred by the court. The recommended amount is $22,500. The next is what we call an oldie but goodie. That's what the director of probation says. So this 9-week, will be 2 cohorts of 9-week programs centralizing around community building and identity, which culminates in a youth created art project. In the past, it's been a mural, and you can, if you go into courtroom, you can see 2 of them. This is phase 3 of a gang resistance intervention program through the court. The recommended amount is $15,800. This is exciting. This particular lead artist has served with the previous program with TPAC. But now, as I said, we were expanding that probation piece. Now we are going to be directly working with youth. They're called diversion cases. They're the first 2 level of probation. They're actually not technically on probation. And so they're assigned to community organizations. And this particular program is partnering with the Oasis Center, and they're going to use live performance of selected August Wilson pieces to facilitate discussion and action about conflict and identity. And there will be 4 cohorts. And so 1 in the fall, 1 in the winter, and 2 in the spring. The recommended award amount is $19,550. All right. And our last and 5th program for approval. This is a beloved program and facilitator by the Juvenile Detention Center. They use music production to teach both technical and life skills to participants. They'll have, they also integrate that family piece. They'll have, they intentionally connect people with their center, as well as every other month, they will have a family Saturday. The recommended award amount is $15,900. And do I take questions now or after I give the action requested? Sorry, I'm new to this. I just want to make sure.
We will be taking questions in just a few seconds. If you want to go ahead and say the action, and then we'll keep moving with the rest.
Wonderful. Great. Sorry, I think I practiced that too, but I got a little bit of stage jitters being my first time and all. So the action requested is the Grants and Funding Committee recommends approval of Restorative Arts Funding Year 21 awards not to exceed the total amount of $98,125 based upon the resource and scheduling availability of the Juvenile Detention Center and probation.
Okay, thank you so much for all of your work, and the energy you bring to this program is fantastic. Grace, do we have any public comments on this motion submitted by email?
We do not.
Okay, are there any callers with public comments?
There are not.
Okay, so we're gonna ask if you have any questions or comments, please just use your raise hand function, and I will call your name so you can ask your questions. That's for commissioners. Okay. Okay, we will know. Okay, at this point, this ends public
I
comment.
see a raised hand.
Oh, yeah, hold on.
Oh, okay.
Just saying that we're just ending the public comment for this agenda item. And we will no longer be taking calls regarding this subject. Okay, so hands. I don't see any hands. Am I missing somebody?
Oh, nope, it went off. Sorry.
Okay. Okay, if there's no questions or any clarifying questions, we need a motion.
Motion to approve. This is Clay.
Thank you, Clay. We need a second.
Second, this is Nikki.
Thank you so much, Nikki. Okay, do we have any other questions or comments? I see, no? Okay. Okay, so.
This is Justin Marsh from Metro Legal.
Yes.
My understanding is my office is still recommending roll call voting at this point. I'm just stepping onto this board, and I don't know if they've received other instructions from council who generally sits here.
Well, if that's your recommendation, that's what we're going to do. Okay, so I will go ahead and start doing roll call. So all of those in favor, I'm going to start with Commissioner Dow.
All right, wait, I need to, oh, yes, I vote yes.
Okay, Commissioner West.
I vote yes.
Okay. Commissioner Haynes.
Yes.
Commissioner Stringer.
Yes.
Commissioner Daniel.
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Commissioner Whitney, you're fine. Marcus?
Yes.
Commissioner Byrd?
Yes.
Commissioner Powell?
Aye.
Commissioner Roberts?
Yes.
Commissioner Nichols Busey? You're still muted, Sherry?
Yes, I vote
Thank
yes.
you. Oh, thank you. Commissioner Cheek?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much.
And me, Marielena. That would be me, Nikki Kaufman, and I vote yes as well.
Sorry, because I don't see your name, I keep forgetting you. Thank you for keep reminding me.
It's fine.
Okay.
No worries.
Marielena, we also have Jane Alvis joining by phone.
Okay, Commissioner Alvis, I'm sorry about that. Jane, would you like to vote on this?
I vote aye.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, well, the motion passes. And now we are going to our second item, which is public art acquisitions budget. And for members of the public that would like to call in regarding this agenda item, you may now call in. That number again, I'm sorry if this is kind of hard for me to repeat because it's kind of far to find it. 629-255-1921. Okay, our operators will put you on hold until we can let you into the meeting. And now I will turn it over to Ann Leslie.
Thank you. Grace, you can go ahead and advance the slide. Good afternoon, and today I am bringing a proposal to you for a public art relief project based on local artwork acquisition. We are bringing this to you today as this project provides a way for Metro Arts to quickly respond to local artists who have been impacted by the March 3rd tornado, as well as the COVID-19 precautions that have closed arts businesses and canceled exhibits. The recommendation coming from the Public Art Committee is for an acquisitions budget of up to $100,000 and approval to develop partnerships with the Nashville Public Library and General Services for artwork placement and programming. Next slide. You may recall that Metro Arts local artwork acquisitions make up what we call the Artworks collection. This is our collection of 2D and 3D wall-hung artworks created by local artists, Davidson County artists, and installed in Metro buildings. These artworks have been purchased by Metro Arts using Percent for Art funds and are included in the Metro Public Art Collection. This expansion of our collection with wall-hung artwork came as a recommendation in our 2017 Public Art Community Investment Plan. We see this as a way to diversify the collection, both in terms of artists and artwork. Many of the artists now represented in our collection are primarily studio and gallery, have studio and gallery practices and might not otherwise have a way to engage with a public art collection. Our first phase of the Artworks collection included the historic Metro Courthouse in 2017 and the Metro Office Building in 2018. Based on the very positive response to this program from artists, the Metro staff working in these buildings, and the public, we've always intended to pursue additional local artwork acquisitions. Next slide, please. Now, exactly what that might look like is yet to be determined, but we certainly have support from Metro departments. General Services was our main contact with the courthouse and the Metro Office Building projects, and future opportunities with General Services could include the installation of artwork in additional Metro buildings that General Services manages. But it could even include something new, like a public art lending program, whereby departments would be able to check out a local artwork and have it on loan to them for 1 to 2 years to display in their department. We've also been in conversation with the public library to look at ways that public art could expand on the tremendous community outreach and programming that they are already providing. Some of the ideas that have been discussed include an art lending library where patrons could check out the work of local artists much in the same way that they check out books. We've also looked at printable art using the printers available at libraries. Another option is check out an artist speaker series where a community group could check out an artist who would come to their meetings and discuss their artistic practice. And of course, there's always programmings on local art and collecting that could be hosted at the libraries, as well as the development of lesson plans and reading lists. The library has even offered a dedicated staff person to work with us. Next slide, please. So based on local artists' needs, Metro Arts' interest in expanding the collection, and the commitment from other Metro departments, staff brought this local artwork acquisition proposal to the Public Art Committee, who is requesting the following motion. Approval of a public art relief project to acquire local artwork for the Metro Public Art Collection with a budget of up to $100,000 from percent funds, and to pursue partnerships with the Nashville Public Library and Metro General Services for artwork placement and programming. And of course, staff would update the Arts Commission once details are confirmed. With that, I will turn it back over to the chair.
Okay, thank you so much. Would PAC Chair Nikki Kaufman have any comments before we move forward?
Yeah, I just want to say that in this weird time where we've, had to innovate on how to continue to support the art ecosystem in our community, that I love, and the PAC loved the concept of a lending library, especially that it felt innovative and accessible, and just really exciting as we try to figure out how to move forward in this world. So yeah, PAC loved it.
Great. Thank you so much, Nikki. Before we continue, Grace, were there any public comments on this motion submitted by email?
There were not.
Okay. Are there any callers with public comments?
There are not.
Okay. That is the end of public comment for this agenda item. We will no longer be taking polls regarding this subject. Are there any clarifying questions from commissioners about this motion? Okay, since I cannot see you, Jane, if you have any questions, just let me know. Okay, so we need a motion. If you anyone would like to make a motion?
This is Paula. I'll make the motion.
Oh, let Paula have it. I'll take the second. This is Nikki.
Okay.
Thanks, Nikki.
Thank you so much. Okay, so if there's no other further discussions, I will do a roll call now. Okay.
Can we just have for the audio record, Paula, would you mind just stating your name and your motion?
Sure, I make a motion to approve the Public Art Relief Project to acquire local artwork for the Metro Public Art Collection. This is Paula Roberts.
Thank you so much.
Okay, Commissioner Dow.
Yes.
Commissioner West.
Yes.
Commissioner Haynes.
Yes.
Commissioner Stringer.
Yes.
Commissioner Daniel.
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt.
Yes.
Commissioner Whitney.
Yes.
Commissioner Byrd.
Yes.
You are muted, Commissioner Byrd.
I'm not still muted, am I?
No. Did you say, can you vote one more time?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Powell?
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts?
Yes.
Commissioner Nichols-Busey?
Yes.
Commissioner Cheek?
Yes.
Commissioner Alves?
Yes.
Commissioner Kaufman?
Yes.
Okay. So moved. Okay, so if anybody needs a 5-minute break, raise your hands. Otherwise, we will continue. Okay, I don't see any hands. So we're gonna go ahead and continue now with our action 3, which is grants allocations. For members of the public that would like to call in regarding this agenda item, you may now call in. Our operators will put you on hold until we can let you into the meeting. Now I'll turn it over to Caroline to give us a budget update.
Okay, thank you. Hi, everybody. I just wanted, before Janine gets into the allocations, to be or to be clear about where we are with the budget. As you may have heard last week, a substitute budget was approved, which reinstated about $1 million back into our budget, which we're very excited about and very grateful to the council members who led that initiative and reinstated our budget. So that means we still have about a $200,000 cut. So what we were able to do was shave off about $100,000 of that from our operational budget, which came from programs, and then $100,000 from the grants budget. So you'll see the overall number is slightly lower than in years past when we've done allocations, but we tried to do the best we could there. And then you'll also see some challenges in that we have good challenges, and then we have a lot of new organizations coming into the pool and a lot of organizations growing. So we're seeing a lot of movement in the categories and just, new organizations. So I just wanted to give that brief update before we got into allocations. And I'll turn it over to Janine for our presentation.
Great, thank you so much, Caroline. And if I could have the next slide, please. Great. So I'll be giving everyone an overview of the grant review process, and then we'll be jumping into the allocations. So again, to review, we have three funding categories. We have basic operating, core operating, and project support. So basic operating is going to be our larger cultural institutions. That's any organization that has a budget over $100,000. These organizations are only reviewed every 3 years, but this is a basic review year. For basic, we recruit out-of-state expert adjudicators, in addition to a CPA, and they'll to review the finances. For core operating, which is reviewed annually, these are any organizations that have a budget of under $100,000, and core is also reviewed by a CPA. Finally, project support. Those are our more targeted awards, and our philosophy behind projects is that we fund fewer but higher quality projects, most aligned with Metro Arts values and standards. Okay, next slide, please. Great, and this is the scoring criteria that we use for all applications. We judge the art, community, and organization. So we're going to be looking at the qualifications of the lead artists, as well as the artistic goals and outcomes under art. For community, that's where we're going to think about engagement strategies. Does an organization really understand the community that they're serving, and do they actually fill an artistic or cultural need voiced by the community? Also, is there an equity analysis applied, and how is it implemented? Finally, in regards to the organization, what are the qualifications and abilities of staff? What are the demographics of both the executive leadership, as well as the board? Also, are there regular assessments, and what do they do with those assessments? Okay, next slide, please. For our financial review, as I said, basic and core are both reviewed by CPAs. Basic organizations have larger budgets and therefore kind of go through a more intensive review. Core operating with budgets less than 100,000, it's still, it's pretty comprehensive, but appropriate to those organizations, and they take a look at, the balance of revenue and expenses, and have they planned for sustainability, and have they grown? Right, next slide, please. These are our basic operating panelists for this year, and we've recruited just really fantastic experts in the grant making field. Michelle Bay is the Arts and Culture Program Officer for the Laurie M. Tisch Illumination Fund out of New York. And they focus on kind of multi-sector innovative programming, and she focuses primarily on the arts and culture awardees of that foundation. Tiffany Vega Gibson is an arts and culture producer out of New Orleans. She's also a audience data specialist. That's her current focus right now. And she was also a alternate roots fellow. Michael Roque is the executive director of the Community Foundation of the San Luis Valley in Colorado. His organization focuses on grant making for the indigenous community in that area of Colorado, and they have a lot of wonderful programs that integrate just multiple facets of life. So arts and food and health and economic development, really exciting things coming out of that Community Foundation. Michael was also a speaker at this past Grant Makers in the Arts Conference. All right, next slide, please. Our community panelists are all local residents. So basically, for anything that's a non-basic panel, we'll recruit Nashville residents to sit on these panels. 52% of our panelists identified as people of color. They have to have limited conflicts of interest. So typically, they're academics, advocates, some graduate students, also retired professionals. That's a lot of what makes up our community panel. Each panel had at least one person with an anti-racism or anti-bias training, and then they're given the scoring criteria and our equity statement as part of their training, and that's what they use to provide scores. All right, next slide, please. As Caroline mentioned, we have a lot of new organizations this year. It's really exciting. Despite all the challenges that our arts organizations are facing, Nashville has still a vibrant and growing arts and culture community. Operation Song is an organization that focuses on music and veterans. The Arts and Business Council of Nashville, you might have heard of them. They've been around for a while. This is the first time they've been eligible for a grant from us. And I'll go into the specifics of that in the next slide. Unscripted is a new improv organization that also has an equity lens. Dancing Through the Curriculum, which is featured here in the photo, combines dance and also core standards in education as part of their programming. It's a really wonderful new organization that we're excited about. Music Neighbors is is an organization that advocates and supports local musicians and has a variety of programming and is very, neighborhood based. Vox Grata is a women's choral group, and Verge Theater is a theater that focuses on affordable theater with a focus on young women. All right, next slide. So as I mentioned, Arts and Business Council was previously not considered eligible for grants, and originated, with their volunteer lawyers program, and were primarily an arts support, arts capacity building organization, but have evolved over the years and now directly support performance and exhibition through of multiple art forms and through a variety of their programs. Such as their fiscal sponsorship program, which is, I will highlight for them, it's not just pass-through funding. They really do partner with these artists and collectives that just don't have 501c3 status yet, and really, co-produce these works and co-create these works. Some of their more well-known programs are Periscope and Creative Exchange, and those use a lot of, they recruit and pay a lot of artists to kind of speak to that intersection of arts and business. So they were, recently found eligible this year because of this evolution of their mission and programming. All right, next slide, please. So just to give a few of the highlights of this year's grant process, as Caroline mentioned, we did have a $200,000 cut to Metro Arts budget. And so you'll see about $100,000 reflection of that within our grants allocations. But our funding priority, our funding priorities reflect Metro Arts' priority to support operating funds, and operating funds, are a lifeline to organizations. They allow for an organization to respond nimbly and specifically to their needs and their situation. And funding operating support is considered a best practice in regards to grant making. And grant making for sustainability and equity. And so you'll see that 98% of our funding did go to operating support. As I mentioned earlier, BASIC was reviewed this year. And as Caroline mentioned also, there was a lot of movement. So a couple organizations that you'll see made big jumps this year are Oz Arts, the National Museum of African American Music, those 7 grantees I mentioned, and also several core grantees. Again, those are our smaller organizations with budgets below 100,000, moved up to the basic 3 category this year. All right, next slide, please. And just to give you an overview, basic is actually broken down further and actually into 3 additional categories. So basic 1, our largest organizations, all above 5 million. Basic 2 is in between 1 and just under 5 million. And we have basic 3 from that $100,000 to just under $1 million. And then core is anything under $100,000. Okay, next slide, please. So now we're going to jump in to the allocations. This is our basic operating support one category, again, over $5 million. You'll see that NAMAM, the National Museum of African American Music, was our top ranking organization this year, which is very exciting. Followed by FRIST. You see some jumps to the Country Music Foundation's award this year. They did very well. They've worked with Metro Arts and asked for feedback on their last review, which is exciting, and it's exciting to see that reflected in the score from the panel. The rest are, there's also some decreases, but it's relatively stable in basic one. Cheekwood has a little bit of a decrease, as well as TPAC and the symphony. The ballet does have a bit of a decrease, but that is again reflected by the score. Before I move on, I'm just going to point out the formula and award calculation. So as you can see, the FY21 awards are highlighted in green. Those are based on the formula, just to the next column, that is set by staff based on the budget. And the formula is based on the score and the difference of score. So as you'll see, the formula decrease and the awards decrease as the rankings decrease, you'll see that it is reflective of the score difference. So it's a pretty simple calculation. Okay, next slide, please. Let's go on to basic 2. All right, great. So here's basic 2. We do see a lot of big jumps here. Belcourt Theater is ranked number 1. They have a slight increase. Oz Arts, you'll see, has a major jump to their funding, which is very exciting. Again, they're another organization that worked very closely with staff and have also, sought out additional consultation and professional development. They're a newer, as you know, they're a newer organization, so they're really dynamic. They're changing. They're, evaluating and responding, and it's exciting to see this jump for them. A little bit of a dip for W.O. Smith, based on their, even though they, scored relatively well, but that's based on the request that they confirmed. Then we have the Opera and Humanities Tennessee. We do have a little bit of a decrease, a larger decrease to the Nashville Children's Theater. Again, this is based on the panel score and their review of them this year. There's, it wasn't reflective of some of the standards and criteria that our panelists were looking at. Then there's Nashville Rep, who does have, they do have an increase, a slight increase this year to their total award. All right, let's jump to basic 3 in the next slide. So basic 3, I won't go over each one of these lines, but I will point out that this is a very dynamic group of organizations. There's lots of movement here, as you can see. It's exciting to see just, the different organizations, responding to trends in the field, and also to Metro Arts priorities, in our equity statement. You'll see, Southern Word is ranked number 1, and I believe they were previously ranked number 1 3 years ago. But there's a lot of kind of emerging, exciting organizations that have, that have risen in the ranks. Youth Empowerment Through the Arts, Moves and Grooves, Theater Bug, Turnip Green are all relatively new organizations, and all do, they've sought a lot of consultation and coaching from Metro Arts staff. But again, similar to Oz, they've also, been doing a lot of professional development on their own. So it's exciting to see this, on all the changes that happened within this category. And again, you'll see those 2 new organizations, Operation Song and Arts and Business Council, join this pretty large category. All right, let's move on to core. Great. And so core is also, a pretty dynamic category. As you can see, lots of new organizations, everyone with a FY20 award of NA means, they weren't reviewed last year. So they're brand new to us, which is very exciting. Some of the awards are a little smaller. However, I do want to point out in that bottom row, our actual investment in core has increased, which is exciting. But again, I think this just kind of shows the story of how vibrant the arts and culture scene and ecosystem is in Nashville, and just how much of a need and want there is, because I think these new organizations are responding to that. So it's exciting to see that. All right, let's move on to our projects. Great. So in our creation category, Oz scored ranked first, and I'll be jumping into a few of the details about this creation grant. Creation. Before we do that, just to let you know, creation funds the creative process, and so we did feel like it was a priority to fund that this year. And yeah, we fund the creative process and not necessarily the performance, which will allow Oz to have a little flexibility in regards to that, because it is it's uncertain times we're living in. So next slide, please. I'll go over Oz's project. So their plan is to produce or to develop an unprecedented community-wide collaboration engaging more than 40 diverse Nashville performers who are associated with a dozen cultural organizations, congregations, and schools, united for an urgent performance exploring the timely themes of hope, recovery, and resilience over adversity, catastrophe, and loss. Very timely indeed. And their creative team includes Shabazz Ujima, Dave Ragland, and Sean Witzel. So we're all very excited about this project. Okay, let's move on to the next. Then we'll have youth arts. I do want to point out that the National Museum of African American Music was reviewed by our panel, but because youth and access are kind of tied together, you can apply. So within our guidelines, an organization can apply for either a youth or an access grant, and then also if they're an arts organization, a catalyst or creation grant. So in regards to youth, they chose to withdraw their youth application and then to just be considered for the access category. So something that I'll highlight for our youth projects is that all of these organizations are non-arts organizations, but that utilize and leverage the arts to promote their mission within Nashville. And they do so in very unique ways, very different from each other. And so really do expand the reach of Metro Arts, which is exciting. And I think, again, it does, we provide them the funding and then they provide the impact. And it's exciting to be able to partner with them in this way and to see the impact that their work will have on the community. All right, so let's move on to access. All right, great. And so in regards to our Access Awards, and our Access Awards, the focus of the Access Award is to fund and to promote arts within communities that have typically not been funded by, foundations and other, arts institutions. And so these programs, really work with those communities. So the National Museum of African American Music ranked first here. And they have a really wonderful program, a multi-generational program that's very exciting. And yeah, we look forward to seeing how this develops as they open this year. Friends Life is an organization that works with adults with disability, and they have a very robust program that incorporates the arts, but also other life skills and work employment skills, and they have a really dedicated staff. They're one of the few organizations that actually does hire arts therapists, like certified arts therapists, which is exciting. Unscripted is that new organization that works with improv with an equity lens. They did very well. They do have a lot of seasoned artists and practitioners, though, even though they are a new organization. So we're excited to see them kind of do so well right off the bat. All right. And we'll have the next slide. And so just to go over our funding philosophy and decision making, again, as I mentioned in the basic one, slide, our funding formula is based on a score that's received from the panel, and then also the request that we're given from the organization. And then because of the cuts, we do have to prioritize. Well, we always have to prioritize, but we had to make some tough decisions this year and really, be intentional about our priorities. And so we chose to prioritize operating support during this critical time. And then for projects, we are prioritizing the creative process, youth, and equity. So unfortunately, the Grants and Funding Committee, along with staff, have chosen to not fund a Catalyst grant award this year, and instead use the funds, reallocate those to operating support. So, and then again, just to highlight, the creation category funds the development of new works, but it does allow for that flexibility to produce their and to launch their performance, whenever they see fit, because these are challenging and uncertain times. All right, next slide. And then finally, just a little bit of a breakdown of the allocations year over year. And basically the big story here, as we've kind of gone through the allocation, is that there is a lot of growth in B3. That's probably the biggest jump. But that doesn't mean we have less organizations or that we're funding core less. It's just like the percentage of. It's relatively stable. But within this, just a lot of growth and a lot of transition of organizations, which is, again, as I've been saying, it's exciting to see, although it does have challenges. All right, next slide, please. Great, and so now we'll open it up for any of your questions and also discussion.
Before we do that, I wanted to ask Mattia Powell, if as the chair of the Grants and Funding Committee, do you have any comments would you like to make before we move forward?
I wanted to say that I just want to commend the staff for such a great process. I know this takes a lot of time and energy, and the commission, as well as I'm sure the arts community, really appreciate the time that you take through this process and making sure that organizations are supported. And I just want to say, just looking at this vast list of organizations, and it just shows how important the Arts Commission is to maintaining the vibrant arts community. And we've seen more organizations get funding this year. We've seen organizations that's grown from core into our basic category. So we know that they're growing and thriving. And so, I think that the work that we're doing is important. So I just want to commend the staff for their hard work in supporting our arts community.
Thank you so much, Mattia. Grace, are there any public comments on this motion that were submitted by email?
There were not.
Okay, are there any callers with public comments?
There's not.
Okay, that is the end of the public comment for this agenda item. We will no longer be taking calls regarding this subject. So now we have Commissioner Roberts. Do you have a question or comment?
Hi, thank you for recognizing me, Chair, Madam Chair. Janine, I have a question for you. I noticed that Oz was the only organization that was funded for the creative grant. Why were no other organizations within that group funded?
Great, that's a great question. So historically, in the creation category, it's just been 1 to 2 organizations. It's a larger of our projects. It's one of it has a larger award of up to 20,000, and so Oz was awarded their full ask of 18,500. We try not to because this is. It's a lot of what we're asking. The projects that are submitted are very ambitious. We try to not decrease the funding too much so that their projects are feasible. So that's the philosophy behind the creation grant allocation. Does that make sense, or do you have any other questions?
I was just wondering, so nobody else within that group was funded?
No one else within that category was funded, correct.
Is there a reason why?
and that's it's historic and also based on the budget because the applicants in that category tend to ask for larger amounts. We're not able, within our budget constraints, to fund multiple creation projects.
Okay, thank you.
Great question, though. I wish we could fund more.
Commissioner Smith?
I had a quick question about the children's theater. And obviously we've got a process where there's a review process set in place and the applications are all judged, but seems like the decrease in funding to the children's theater, which is, I believe, probably the city's oldest cultural arts institution, it's pretty significant. I think it's, I don't have the slide in front of me, but I think it was a $60,000 change. What was kind of deficient within the application to have that large a reduction?
Sure. So some of the comments that we received from the panel include, I think they were primarily focused in that community criteria. You know, to sum up, you know, the panelists felt that in the program planning process and their artistic development, while they internally had considerations for community, they didn't actually reach out and also and ask for that feedback in a you know, kind of in as deep and a tangible way as the panelists felt that the organization could have. Also, in kind of the reflection of you know, of the audience attended, even if it, you know, a production was kind of geared toward a certain community. It wasn't reflected in, you know, there were significant changes into the audience, you know, that was invited in. It still remained, you know, pretty, you know, pretty similar despite kind of what they thought would be effective community engagement strategies. So that was, that's hopefully something they'll consider. And, you know, of course, Metro Arts staff, we're not just, you know, funding. The partnership between us and arts organizations isn't just about funding, it's about a relationship and, you know, and supporting them and developing. So we'll have a, you know, we'll share all of the panel comments with them as part of our process. And, you know, we'll be there to kind of go over with them those comments and also, you know, suggestions on, you know, on what can be done in the short term and what can be done in the long term. But those are just some of the comments.
Okay.
Do you have any others?
It's a little hard to believe with when their one of their primary audiences is Metro school children. And obviously that reflects pretty strongly the diversity in our community. So I just, that one is hard for me to stomach, so.
Yeah, and you know, we can, again, we have, again, more specific comments from the panel, but those were just the major ones. You know, artistically, I think they were very strong, but it was just that, it was more about the process. So not necessarily the, I mean, that was one part of it is the audience, but it's also the kind of the process of engagement. You know, the fact that they're making decisions with limited community, I guess, limited community voice, if I'm representing the panel correctly, or, you know, that they could have done that in a deeper way.
Mattia, do you have a comment about that?
Yeah, I just wanted to, you know, just touch base on just a comment or a conversation that I brought up in our grants committee, you know, yesterday. You know, I've sat on the panels a couple of years, and I commend our commitment to equity and diversity. And I feel like, you know, we are in a place where we've done this a couple of years, and I think organizations understand the importance of it. But I do feel like, you know, we do need to figure out how we can operationalize, you know, what that looks like in a grant application. So one, as a person on a committee, they understand one, where an organization is in the process of equity and diversity, and then how they've been growing. And I say that just because I've been on, been part of these panels a couple of times in a couple of years now. Still new, not as long as a lot of folks, but 2 years. And, both years there's been, the panelists have always really had really thoughtful questions about how you're engaging community and how you're getting input from populations that you want to serve and across Nashville. And some of the answers are always we're trying or we're working on it, and we continue to hear that this for 2 years. Like I've heard organizations just say they're working on it with no really concrete plans on how they're going to get there and like what support they need. And then there's and then it's also hard to tell like where they were prior to see how they've grown the following year. So, I think we talked a little bit about, I know that Janine talked about some of the things that the staff is going to be doing over the next year, figure out best practices around this, that the other communities that are really committed to equity and how they're operationalizing this in their process, and thinking through how that could look differently. So I just want to flag that as, something that, we had, that at least I, feel like is important to making sure that our values are being represented, and also that we're giving organizations, grace, and also having a way to make sure that we, are supporting them and see the growth that's happening in those areas. But right now, it's all a process, it's all a journey. So I think that we've been doing a great job, and I think it's time for us to kind of think through what's the next step in this work.
Jim, do you have anything else to say? Or any other comments or questions?
I'll hold for now.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions? Yes, Commissioner West.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank everybody for your work on the allocations, but like Jim, I also am a little concerned looking at W.O. Smith, NCT, the ballet, these substantial cuts to their operational budget from us during this time where they are not going to be probably taking in ticket sales, limited audience. Are we revisiting what the guidelines and what the metrics are going to look for in the future? Because these are just, I'm having a hard time like stomaching these as well. Will the guidelines and evaluations change due to COVID? Because not as often, what are we looking at there? I just have some concerns on that.
Sure. Well, the Grants and Funding Committee does review and revise the guidelines every year. And so this year, and I'll mention this in a little bit. So even with the awards that we're giving, we are going to be doing additional checks to make sure that the awards are feasible and that the organizations, can accept these awards. Prior to, and also to highlight also prior to the review, the full panel review in all the categories, each of our organizations was provided with, a survey that they could respond to give additional information to the panel reviewers about how they are pivoting in light of COVID-19 and the stay-at-home orders. So all of the panel did have those that additional information to make their scoring and their recommendations.
And those organizations were given ample time to fill that out, get it back in. Did you hear from everyone?
We heard, I believe so, and we did follow up with any organizations who did not provide any additional information. But we were working as quickly as possible. Our applications are due in March, so it was a little bit of a quick turnaround. But we did get them out. I think as early March.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anybody else have, Commissioner Powell, do you have something else to add or?
Sorry, I'll take my hand down.
Okay. Okay, Commissioner Schmidt, sorry.
Yeah, sorry, I seem to be the chatty one today. So I've got a question. Looking, obviously, we talked about some of the differential and the decreases in some of these, like Country Music Foundation, which has in the past, from my recollection, There have been some conversations about their commitment to diversity and all that. I guess my question is, have they, I guess, turned things around enough? And I'm curious about what they did in order to get a higher bump in what they're receiving, because they're going up 30,000, which is great. I'm supportive of them too, but I'm also interested to hear what they've done to.
Sure. And as I said, I mean, we can do, I can get a more detailed presentation about the comments and the trends here. But just to speak to Country Music Foundation, I think what was exciting, or what the panel reacted to, was an operationalized take on our, in regards to our criteria. So, thinking about leadership, thinking about, programs. Again, these are, it's showing growth in those areas. And these are new panels, so they are reviewing fresh. They weren't the same panelists that reviewed the basic category 3 years ago, but what they were able to highlight in the applications, is how reflective are the criteria within the application. They did attend the panel review. Representatives from the organizations are all invited to attend the panel review and be present if the panel has any questions for them. And so the follow-up questions were answered, really comprehensively, of the ones that they did have. But I think that's with my best recollection of specifically Country Music Foundation, it's that they're taking they're really thinking about our criteria and trying to apply it, not in a kind of a little bit of like a patch, but trying to change their institution.
Okay. Commissioner Roberts?
I don't want Jim to feel bad about being the only chatty one, so I'm going to jump in too. Janine, you just mentioned that you review the criteria every year. I'm wondering if, even thinking forward for next year, maybe it's even that we have to dial it back to where an organization can only submit to one category. I just say that just because I'm looking at how many people are being funded in different spaces, but then there's so many that haven't been funded at all. So
that's definitely, that's an option. We can consider that. We've, considered different things like, if you're above a certain budget threshold, maybe not being allowed for project funding, and that should maybe only be available for organizations within a certain budget threshold, maybe the kind of the medium to smaller organizations. I mean, those are considerations for the Grants and Funding Committee, but I think, speaking as, the staff, the key staff person on that committee, I welcome all of these comments and suggestions, and I would imagine that the rest of the staff and also commissioners on the Grants and Funding Committee do as well. But yeah, that's a possibility and a good suggestion.
Thank you.
Okay, since I cannot see Commissioner Kaufman and Commissioner Alvis, if you do have any or comments, please feel free to jump in, since I cannot see if you're raising your hand.
I do have a question. What is Moves and Grooves?
Moves and Grooves is a dance organization.
Okay, it just seems like it was just such a big jump. I just was interested in why they went up so much.
Yes, well, they have they do fantastic community engagement. They have highly trained artistic staff. Also, their organization is very reflective of the community they serve. Those are some of the highlights from Moves and Grooves that I can just bring up off the top of my head.
Okay, it just seemed like a big jump, but thank you.
And I believe they jumped categories this year. Is that right? I believe
Correct.
they came from a smaller category up into that one. Yeah.
Yeah, very dynamic organization.
Got it. Thank you. Makes sense.
Okay, Commissioner Cheek.
Yes, I was just wanted to ask, I mean, Janine, you referred to reflect the community they serve. I have no idea what that means. Are we speaking about race, age, poverty? I mean, if there's any way you could explain a little bit more what that means.
Oh, sure thing. So it's obviously it's dependent on the organization. So an organization like Music for Seniors, you know, within their mission, it's written in that their primary, primary community that they serve is, you know, seniors in Nashville, Davidson County. And so, other organizations that tend to serve, you know, Nashville as a whole, and we use demographics, and those are, you know, all of the different, demographic categories. If there's an organization that's, that specifically focuses, on a certain neighborhood, obviously it's more specific to that neighborhood. Does that help? It's just very dependent on the organization and their.
I'll go back to two that you talked about because that's why it came up, Moves and Grooves, and then you said the same thing about the Children's Theater. So if you could just review your answer. I couldn't follow your answer because I didn't know what community you're speaking to.
Sure. So that is, the Nashville Children's Theater seeks to, serve the children of Nashville, Davidson County primarily, although I know their reach is farther. I believe that the panelists were looking at specific Nashville, Davidson County demographics, and then comparing it to information that was provided by the organization in regards to their audience, in regards to their staff and board also. So that's what they will look at. And so those questions did come up consistently by the basic panelists.
I'm sorry to interrupt. How did the Children's Theater fail that measure? Because they did fairly poor.
Correct. So I believe in regards to staff is a major one. So that's also administrative and artistic staff, as well as board. In regards to serving the community, it's not quite as diverse as the demographics of Nashville, Davidson County.
So, I mean, I'm sorry, I think you're mincing your words. Is it too white? Is it too female?
Sure, it's too white. It's too white. It's not as diverse as Nashville, Davidson County is.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying. It's just good to know exactly what they were talking about. And then on Moves and Grooves?
I'm going to look them up really quickly because, again, they are a new organization, and I will read their mission statement.
This is Commissioner Haynes. I'd like to jump in quickly. I had my hand raised. I would state it differently, which is that it doesn't represent the values that we have, as a board, have selected and defined, right? And so, kind of using the comment of, I don't kind of like how we're pushing staff to define the things that we have defined in terms of these criteria. So it's up to us to define those, and we have.
And I will also, I'll support that as well. These are the, all the panelists are given the equity statement that was approved by the commission in 2015. And also, again, the scoring criteria and the guidelines that are reviewed and updated annually by the Grants and Funding Commission. And my internet is a little slow, so I don't have Moves and Grooves in front of me. But I do know that their teaching staff, that I do remember a comment that their teaching staff specifically is quite diverse and from the Nashville Davidson community. When they were asked about questions of their staff and their leadership and their audience, and the people on their the people in their classes, it was reflective.
Thank you, Janine. I really appreciate the additional explanation.
Okay. And yeah, I welcome them and apologize if I'm not speaking as clearly. And you know, I don't have everything right in front of me, but I can, of course, if it's requested by everyone, you know, go into, you know, provide a more detailed report regarding specific comments as related to the criteria.
Okay. Do we have any other questions or comments right now? Do we have further opportunities to ask questions based on the category we're going to be voting on? So this is not the last time, but I wanted to make sure we don't have any more discussions before we move forward. Okay. Okay, so due to the different conflicts and probably necessary abstentions, we will now take individual votes on each category of the grants allocation. So commissioners, so when somebody's going to make a motion, if you can please be very specific and say something along the lines like, I make a motion to accept the proposed, let's say, basic 1 grant allocation with the already stated conditions, just so it's very clear what are we voting for. So we're going to start with basic 1. Grace, do we have any commissioners that have conflicts on this category?
Yes, we do, and I will go ahead and read those out for you. Okay. So for basic 1, it looks like we have conflicts of interest from Marianne Bird, Will Cheek, Hope Stringer, and Marcus Whitney. And if I've missed anyone or you think any of these conflicts are a mistake, please let me know.
Okay. So now we need a motion for basic 1. Anyone?
Marilena, this is Nikki, and I make a motion to approve the grant allocation awards for basic 1.
Thank you, Nikki. Do we have a second?
This is Mattia Powell. I second.
Okay, thank you so much, Mattia. Okay, so I will call on, do we have further comments or questions? Okay, so let's get started. Commissioner Dow?
Yes.
Commissioner West?
Approve.
Commissioner Haynes?
Approve.
Commissioner Daniel?
Approve.
Commissioner Schmidt?
Very reluctantly approve.
Hey, do you wish to discuss this further?
No, because I don't think, no.
Okay. Okay, Commissioner Powell?
I approve.
Commissioner Roberts?
Approve.
Commissioner Nichols Busey?
Yes.
Commissioner Alvis?
Aye.
Commissioner Kaufman?
Approve.
Okay. Thank you so much. Quick question for Caroline and legal. Do we need to call specifically the names of the people who are not voting in this category and have them say it, or no?
We should abstain.
I don't know the answer to that. I think. Go ahead, Justin.
I was going to say, if they have a conflict of interest, which is my understanding, their vote would be recorded as abstaining.
And do they?
So there's no need to read their name.
Thank you. Thank you. That was my question. I appreciate that. Okay, so seems like basic 1 is approved. So we're going to go ahead and move on to category basic 2. We need a motion.
Oh, Marilena, we do have some conflicts for this one.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Do we have any conflicts?
Yes, so I have on my list Jane Alvis, Bonnie Dow, Will Cheek, Paula Roberts, Hope Stringer, and Marcus Whitney.
So I'm sorry. So you said All, Jane,
Yes, Jane.
Tia, Will, Paula, Marcus, and am I missing anybody?
Let's see, not Mattia, Bonnie.
Bonnie, I'm sorry.
No worries. So Jane, Bonnie, Will, Paula, Hope, and Marcus.
Oh, okay. That's who else missing. Okay. Thank you so much. So we need a motion for basic 2.
This is Mattia Powell. I make a motion that we approve the FY grant allocations for the basic 2 category.
This is Nikki, and I'll second that.
Thank you so much. Do we have any other questions about this category, basic 2? Okay. So let's get started.
Hey, I'm sorry, Marilyn. Can I ask a quick question before we get into the vote?
Yes.
Given all of the abstentions for this category, what's the magic number to make sure that these get approved?
So that would be 8. Sorry, this is Grace speaking.
How many, again, this is Jim, how many eligible voters are there after the abstentions are taken out of consideration?
There are 9.
So we have quorum, yeah, okay. Okay, so basic 2, I'm gonna start roll call. Commissioner West?
Approve.
Commissioner Haynes?
Approve.
Commissioner Daniel?
Approve.
Commissioner Schmidt?
Again, reluctantly approve.
Okay, Commissioner Byrd?
Approve.
Commissioner Powell?
Approve.
Commissioner Nichols-Busey?
Approved.
Commissioner Kaufman?
Approved.
Okay, thank you so much. Let's see. Okay, it seems like we are good to go and it's approved, and we are moving on to category basic 3. Do we have any? I'm sorry. Yeah, do we have any abstentions in this category, Grace?
Yes, it looks like Jane Alvis and Mattia Powell have conflicts of interest.
Okay. Thank you so much. So we need a motion to approve category basic 3.
This is Commissioner Busey. I make a motion to approve the grants and funding grant allocations for number 3 basic.
Thank you so much. Do we have a second?
This is Will Cheek. I'll second.
Thank you so much. Okay, do we have any other questions or comments about basic 3? Okay, we're gonna go ahead and get started. Commissioner Dow?
Yes.
Commissioner West? Thank you.
Approve.
Commissioner West, can you repeat yours one more time, please?
Yes, approve.
Thank you. Commissioner Haynes?
Approve.
Commissioner Stringer?
Approve.
Commissioner Daniel?
Approve.
Commissioner Schmidt?
Approve.
Commissioner Whitney?
Approved.
Commissioner Byrd?
Approve.
Commissioner Byrd?
Approve.
Thank you. Commissioner Roberts?
Approve.
Commissioner Nichols-Busey?
Approved.
Commissioner Cheek?
Approved.
Commissioner Kaufner?
Kaufman? Me? Nikki?
Nikki.
Is that what you said, Marlena?
Yes.
Yes. Approved.
Thank you so much. Okay, we'll move. Now we are going to move into the core category. Grace, do we have any abstentions?
It's my understanding that we don't have any conflicts of interest on this category.
Okay. Thank you so much. Yes, Justin.
Just for clarification purposes, there was a question asked, how many members of the board would need to pass a motion?
Yes.
Reviewing the bylaws for this commission is those present and voting. That being the case, there has been a quorum at this meeting, and so it would just be a simple majority of those voting on the motion.
Oh, thank
Just
you,
for clarification purposes to the board.
Thank you so much.
Sorry.
No, thank
Appreciate
you.
that.
Okay. So it seems like we don't have any abstentions on core, so we will need a motion.
This is Will Cheek. I move to approve core.
This is Jane Alvis. I second.
Thank you so much. Any other questions or comments about the core category? Okay, we're gonna go ahead and get started. Commissioner Dow. Okay, Grace, did you hear it? I didn't hear it.
Oh. Approve.
Thank you. I'm sorry. Commissioner West.
Approve.
Commissioner Haynes.
Approve.
Commissioner Stringer.
Approve.
Commissioner Daniel.
Approve.
Commissioner Schmidt. Jim, I didn't hear you. Do you mind repeating yours?
Approve, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Thank you. Commissioner Whitney. Marcus, do you mind repeating yours?
Approved.
Thank you. Commissioner Byrd.
Approved.
Commissioner Powell.
Approved. Approve.
I'm sorry, Mattia, do you mind repeating yours?
Approved.
Thank you. Commissioner Roberts.
Yay.
Commissioner Nichols Busey.
Approved.
Commissioner Cheek.
Approved.
Commissioner Alvis.
Aye.
Commissioner Kuffner.
Approved.
Okay, thank you so much. So moved. Now we're moving on to the catalyst category. Grace, do we have anybody that needs to abstain from voting?
I just believe that Jane should abstain.
Okay.
I did not disclose Oz Arts. I forgot about it. I represent them, so I'd need to abstain.
Okay.
Will, you did let us know. They applied for a creation, not a catalyst, though. Correct me if I'm wrong, Janine.
That is correct.
Oh wait, are we going to creation or catalyst?
Catalyst.
Okay, then catalyst should just be Jane. And thank you, Will. I think you were good for this one, but not for creation.
Thank you, Grace. Okay, so we need a motion for catalyst.
Marilena, I'll move. This is Nikki, and I'll move to approve the grant allocation for Catalyst.
Thank you so much. We need a second.
It's Marcus. I'll second.
Thank you so much. Do we have any other questions or comments about the catalyst?
We skipped over creation.
I'm sorry?
We skipped over the creation. Number 5, we skipped number 5 and went straight to number 6.
Sorry, on my list I had catalyst first and then creation. So I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry, I was just looking at the PowerPoint.
That's okay, that's okay.
Madam Chair, I also represent the National Museum of African American Music, so I need to abstain on this category.
Okay, so hold on one second. So I was trying, so do we do creation first instead of catalyst?
I mean, I think we can continue with Catalyst if we have the motion. Although, I mean, we're not funding this category, so I don't even know if we need a vote. Justin, can you confirm, or should we go ahead and vote that we're not funding this category?
If there's no funding for the category, I don't think a vote would be necessary, but given the vote's already begun, it sounds like we can finish the vote if so, for clarification purposes, or the motion can be withdrawn.
Nikki, would you like to withdraw your motion, or
is that the advice of the staff and Justin is to withdraw or to just continue?
Hey, this is Will. I think, I mean, legally, we don't have to vote on it, but I think for appearance's sake, it would be good for us to go ahead and vote since there's been a recommendation to the Arts Commission.
okay? So we have a motion. We still don't have a second.
This is Commissioner West. I second.
Thank you so much. Okay. So do we have any discussions? Okay, so I'll get started. Commissioner Dow?
Approve.
Commissioner West?
Approve.
Commissioner Haynes?
Approve.
Commissioner Stringer?
Approve.
Commissioner Daniel?
Approve.
Commissioner Smith?
Approve.
Commissioner Whitney?
Approved.
Commissioner Byrd?
Approved.
Commissioner Powell?
Approved.
Commissioner Roberts?
Approve.
Commissioner Nichols Busey?
Approve.
Commissioner Sheep?
Abstain.
Commissioner Kuffner?
Approve.
Okay, thank you so much. And I'm sorry about that, everybody. Let's go ahead and move on to creation. Grace, I believe we have Will on creation.
Yes, we also have Bonnie, Hope, and Marcus.
Hope and Marcus. Okay. Great. Thank you so much. Okay, so we need a motion for the creation category.
This is Commissioner Busey, and I propose a motion to approve the F21 grant allocations and funding for the creation. Or are we on you?
Yes, creation.
Did I get that right?
Yes, the creation. Thank you.
Marilena, this is Nikki, and I second that motion.
Thank you so much. Do we have any questions or comments about, okay, Commissioner West?
Yes, I have a question. Following up on Commissioner Roberts. Can you tell us how many applications we received for creation?
Janine?
Yes, I will jump in and look at that.
11, 12, 13, 14, 16, 17. I got 7.
17.
Yeah, I showed 17.
And Oz was the only
for creation. No, I think it was less than that, but I'll let me confirm. But Oz is the only, and historically, we tend to just award creation award because of the size of this particular grant. I will let me just.
This is Mattia. It looks like there were 8.
8. Okay.
Thank you, Mattia.
I'm familiar with creation. I guess just looking at the large increase to Oz in the operating category, and if we're going on some of the diversity of their board and staff, I was just curious as to what the other applications brought to the table versus them. But that was more of a comment. I just wanted to know creation, how many people applied. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody has any questions or any other comments about creation? Okay, we're gonna go ahead and get started. Commissioner West?
Approved.
Commissioner Haynes,
Approve.
Commissioner Daniel,
Approve.
Commissioner Smith,
Approve.
Commissioner Byrd.
Approve.
I'm sorry about my dog. Commissioner Byrd.
The dog and I are competing. Approve.
Sorry, I'm moving. Commissioner Powell.
Approve.
Okay. Commissioner Roberts.
Nay. I do not approve.
Okay. Commissioner Nichols Busey.
Approved.
Commissioner Alves.
Yes, approved.
Commissioner Kovner.
Approved.
Okay. Thank you so much. So moved. Okay. Now we're moving on to youth. Grace, do we have any abstentions on the youth category?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Wait 1 second. We need a motion to approve the youth category.
This is Bonnie. I move that we approve the funding recommendations in the youth category.
Thank you so much. We need a second.
This is Will. I'll second.
Okay. Thank you. Do we have any other questions or comments about the youth category? Okay. We're going to go ahead and get started. Commissioner Dow?
Approve.
Commissioner West?
Approve.
Commissioner Haynes?
Approve.
Commissioner Stringer?
Approve.
Commissioner Daniel?
Approve.
Commissioner Smith?
Yes.
Commissioner Whitney? Marcus?
Approved.
Thank you. Commissioner Byrd?
Approve.
Commissioner Powell?
Approve.
Commissioner Roberts?
Approve.
Commissioner Nichols Busey?
Approved.
Commissioner Cheek?
Approved.
Commissioner Alves?
Yes.
Commissioner Kovner?
Approved.
Thank you so much, everybody. We have one more category, arts access. Grace, do we have any abstentions in this category?
Yes, we do. Sorry, I was just trying to get my mask off. So for arts access, I believe since Will Cheek has the conflict of interest with the National Museum of African American Art, he has a conflict, and then Hope does as well.
Okay, so Will and Hope. Okay. Thank you so much. So we need a motion to approve the arts access category.
This is Paula. I move to approve the arts access grant allocations.
Thank you so much. Do we have a second?
Marilena, it's Nikki. Second.
Thank you so much. Okay, so we have any other questions and comments about the arts access category? Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and get started. Commissioner Dow?
Approve.
Commissioner West?
Approve.
Commissioner Haynes?
Approve.
Commissioner Daniel?
Approve.
Commissioner Smith?
Approve.
Commissioner Whitney?
Approved.
Commissioner Byrd?
Approved.
Commissioner Powell?
Approved.
Thank you. Commissioner Roberts?
Approve.
Commissioner Nichols Busey?
Approved.
Commissioner Cheek?
I'm abstaining.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That's true. I'm sorry about that. Commissioner Alves?
Yes.
Commissioner Kovner?
Approve.
Okay. Thank you so much. Seems like, so moved. It seems like we are done with all of our categories. And now that concludes our action items. I will now hand the meeting over to Caroline. We have some operational updates.
Great. Thank you, Mary Elena. Thank you, everyone. I know that's always hard every year, and it's even harder on doing this all online. So I appreciate you sticking with us through that very tedious process. We really appreciate it. And I think as we can all see, with less money, with flat money, we're just having to make really hard choices, and it's definitely shrinking what we're able to allocate. So I appreciate your conversations and feedback, and we'll continue to evaluate those and do what we can with what we have. Just really quickly, I wanted to update you. I had a couple of questions about the courthouse artwork. We did end up having to move out all of the interior artworks due to the damage that happened there. Was that about a month ago? And most of them have been moved back in and reinstalled, except for the ground floor, which had some additional issues that they're still working out. Witness walls was also tagged, so we're working with our new conservator to look at that and get that repaired. So those are fairly minor, and we're just working through that through our regular program of collections management that Ann Leslie does a fantastic job of all the time. Also wanted to update you that I was contacted by Dr. Caldwell, the Director of Public Health, about potentially using some of the COVID funds that the city has to work with artists around some campaigns to help our citizens that are 65 and older, which have, a very specific set of challenges. So that's exciting. I just got that call yesterday, so I wasn't able to kind of bring it to you as an action item, but I am very excited about the idea of, having artists work in that space. So I'll be talking with them more and bringing that back to you in August. The other thing is, I think you all know we had some training scheduled with Crossroads anti-racism that would have been happening this spring, and then they also had some in August that have moved online. I do believe they're going to try to do their October 2.5-day training in person at the Center for Nonprofit Management this fall, in October. So we'll keep you posted on that if anyone's interested in that training. And we've also been approached by the Porch Writers Collective about working with Crossroads to do sort of a virtual extended workshop around anti-racism training and some writing exercises, which we're very excited about. So we're in talks with them about that, and we'll know more later. I think those are all my major updates, but we'll keep working on all the things that are happening here, and appreciate your time and attention and going through this very long, difficult meeting. And I'll turn it back over to Mary Elena.
Yes, anybody has any questions at all for Caroline or for their staff? Okay, I just wanted to say thank you so much to the grants and funding committee. That's a lot of work. You guys did really good. Thank you to all the commissioners. This was a very long meeting, and we appreciate your time and everything you do for the commission and the staff. You have done tremendous, incredible work during these difficult times, and you have helped so much the arts community. And I just wanted to say thank you to everybody. And if there's no other questions or comments, that completes our meeting.
I did want to note one thing, Mary Elena, that as far as we know, the governor's executive order for us to be able to conduct virtual meetings actually expires June 30th. So that means we would have to start meeting in person in July. So I think what we tried to do is smush all of our action items to today and then in August. So that'll give us some time to figure out how we are going to meet in person, safely and socially distanced. So we're working on a location for that, because our previous room that we were meeting in is surely not big enough for that. So I just wanted to give you a heads up on that August would be anticipated to be an in-person meeting unless something changes at the state level with that executive order.
Hey, Caroline, this is Will. Because people couldn't attend the meeting, I've gotten 3 texts during this meeting where people are asking, are we voting? Since we voted yes on the draft, is it okay if we circulate that? Or when will you have a final that we can share with the public? People are asking how much they got.
For grant allocations?
Yes.
Will be, I think Janine is probably going to be reaching out this afternoon to grantees. Now that you voted on it, it is public information, but we will be sending out communications this afternoon, and then we'll send out a press release probably Friday or Monday, depending on how we're able to get that out.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so if there's no other comments or questions, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mariana.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information about this and other programs, visit nashville.org.